Welcome outside Gillette Stadium, everybody. My name is Mike Petraglia, joined as always by Patriots expert columnist for WEEI.com, Christopher Price. All right, Chris, the big game is finally upon us Thursday night here at Gillette Stadium. We are finally back after an off-season of Deflategate and zaniness and silliness, a lot of distractions, into preparing for game number one of the regular season, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's really where the focus was there inside the locker room and with Bill Belichick this morning on Monday morning, Labor Day morning, really focused on Ben Roethlisberger and what it's going to take to stop their speed on the outside and inside as well.
This is going to be a game that sets up, at least initially, when you look at the two matchups, going to be a lot of points scored. There's going to be a lot of passing. The two lead backs for this one, Le'Veon Bell and LeGarrette Blount, both are going to be out. But at the same time, you have a passing game on New England side of the ball that's going to have Rob Gronkowski, Julian Edelman, a handful of really talented counterparts. Then on the other side, you have Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger, one of the best combinations right now in the National Football League. It's going to be a lot of five wides. It's going to be a lot of throwing the ball. Don't look for a lot of quality runs between the tackles in this one.
Now, to your point, Chris, the last time they met 2 years ago, 2013, Patriots won here at Gillette Stadium 55-31. Ben Roethlisberger, 28 of 48 for exactly 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. You know what I take from that game? Patriots got to him 5 times. As much as Bill Belichick has talked this week about how hard it is to take down the 241-pound Ben Roethlisberger, they did get to him, and they did get him to the ground.
Yeah, and I think that when you kind of look forward with that and what they were able to do in that game, and you look at the changes that have been made in the Patriots defense since then, right, you're looking at a front seven, and I think is much better equipped to actually get after the football, get after the passer than they were in 2013. There's some questionable spots on that Pittsburgh offensive line. They're not going to have Marquise Pouncey, their Pro Bowl center. He's out for an extended stretch with a leg injury. So look for the Patriots to try and test some of those soft spots in that offensive line, particularly up the middle. Wouldn't be surprised to see them try and get pressure right up the gut. Maybe some A-gap blitzes on the part of Jamie Collins, Dante Hightower, those guys, as well as really you want to see something out of Dominique Easley, out of the rest of that group of interior linemen, the ability to push the pocket, get some negative plays, and you can win on first down, you win on second down. That makes things easier defensively on third down.
And that's one thing Ben Roethlisberger told me on the conference call on Sunday was that this 11-man defensive line, in terms of their depth, their motors are always going. I asked Bill Belichick about that here on Monday, and he said, well, that was just Big Ben trying to butter us up, and he's doing a really good job. But to Roethlisberger's point, the Patriots have a lot of different looks that they can show. We saw a little bit of stunning where Gerard Mayo and Jamie Collins in the preseason game, I believe it was against the Panthers, rushed the A-gap, like you were saying. So we could expect to see some of that on Thursday night.
Yeah, I do. I think we're going to see a lot of the Patriots trying to put extra pressure on Ben Roethlisberger because, frankly, in the back end, there's still some questions about that cornerback situation. Don't know who's going to be going up against Antonio Brown, whether it's going to be Malcolm Butler, whether it's going to be a handful of guys trying to offer combination coverage. You want your team to be able to get home faster than they did on a consistent basis last year, right, just because you have more questions about what you have on the back end. So you're going to need a really good performance out of the guys up front. The edge guys, the defensive tackles, whether it's Rob Ninkovich, Chandler Jones, Javal Sheard, again, the guys we mentioned, bringing pressure consistently on Roethlisberger, having him get rid of the ball as soon as possible.
One thing I did ask Dante Hightower about Ben Roethlisberger, and he told me in the locker room here on Monday that the one thing they're aware of with Roethlisberger, pump fakes. And he said, and I don't know if he was really letting out any of the game plan or not, but it's hard to play man against a guy like Roethlisberger for that reason, because if you're in man and he pump fakes you and you lose your guy, he's wide open in the secondary.
Roethlisberger's and we kind of tend to think of him as a younger guy, one of those younger quarterbacks. Amazing to think Roethlisberger's been around for about a decade now, and he's a guy who has learned a few things along the way. To your point, I think he's very good when it comes to pump faking. He doesn't have, I think, at least in this one, he's not going to have the sort of play-action capability because, let's face it, D'Angelo Williams is no Le'Veon Bell. So I don't think you're going to be able to take that as seriously as maybe you would if Bell was back there. But at the same time, that's a great point. I think that when you look at Roethlisberger and his ability to throw some things at you that you may not be ready for right out of the gate, I think he might be a little bit underrated in that aspect.
Let's turn to the offensive side of the ball for the Patriots. And, yes, Tom Brady's playing, and we've covered that in as much detail as we possibly could over the last several weeks and months, for that matter. Let's turn to the weapons. Rob Gronkowski didn't play all of the preseason once again, and he hasn't played in the preseason since 2012, as you have pointed out on numerous occasions. But Thursday night will be the first time we get to see Scott Chandler and Rob Gronkowski on the field together. The biggest impact is
Pittsburgh is really looking to jam right off the ball. They've already talked about that. It's one of those things that we've seen from this team in years past. They've had a bit of a different defensive look this year. They have a new defensive coordinator in Butler as opposed to years and years under Dick LeBeau. And I want to see how they go about defending him. But again, what they want to do is they want to jam Gronkowski off the line. The difference there is, to your point, the Patriots didn't have Scott Chandler before. So if you try and get physical with Gronkowski and you try and mess up the Patriots' timing on the offensive side of the ball, I think that they have a guy in Chandler there, at least in the short and intermediate routes, who is able to do a pretty good job, at least in my experience, of picking up some of those receptions that would normally go to Gronkowski. So if I'm the Steelers, of course, I try and go and get as physical as I can with Gronkowski, but at the same time, you have to account for Scott Chandler in those situations.
I counted at least 5 or 6 times that Rob Gronkowski said he was super excited to get back on the field because obviously, as we just said, he hasn't been playing football in game action since Super Bowl 49. And obviously, he's a football player. And while practice is great, even full pads is great, it's not